In Thai, pineapple eyes means ta sapparot. It's something my dad used to say to me a lot, and he still says it. If you have a pineapple, it looks as though it has many eyes. And the saying goes that with many eyes, you can see the world more fully. I think that's a very wise thing, and that's what we'd like to explore here, in this podcast.
My name is James Greer. I'm one half of MSCTY alongside Nick Luscombe. What I do is I make sound recordings, field recordings, and then I make music and sound design and soundscapes from those. At the moment, I'm actually in the UK, although I'm usually based in Japan, where I've been based for about 10 years now. So for me, as someone who's sometimes struggled to focus, sometimes had issues with, attention, I find that it's quite grounding to be able to focus on simple things like sounds. There's a couple of reasons why I got into that, I think. One is that I really liked music, and so through making and writing and playing music, it just got increasingly ambient to the point where I wasn't really playing so much anymore. To the point where I realised maybe I'll just go out and do the nature, listen to that and see. And then I guess you go through these different phases. So, there was a whole time when I wanted to complement nature, I think, and play along with it. And then I went through a phase of just trying to make really nice, clean recordings. And now I'm kind of like trying to make music that is characteristic of the feeling I had connecting to that sound, rather than simply using the sound or, adding something to it. I kind of want to remove the sound completely, share a memory or a feeling or a taste or something that actually was my takeaway from it. Which I guess is where the art side of it comes in, for want of a better word. This is a sound recording I made last week in the Highlands of Scotland as things wake up in the morning. There is a road in the background, but quite far away, so you can hear quite a lot of the sort of beginnings of autumn. And I think spring and autumn are actually two seasons that are quite sonically interesting because of the changes that go on. So I've been in Japan for quite a long time, and it's quite rare to come back for this long. The recording's from northeast Scotland, quite near to the River Dee in Deeside, which is where I grew up. It's been really nice to reconnect with some of the areas that I grew up in that I maybe haven't been to for a really long time. It's a kind of mountainous area. It's quite near to the beginning of the Highlands. I kind of like that in the English language, wonder and wander with an A are quite similar to say. And to me, I think when I am wandering around, I'm probably wandering the most. For me, it was quite interesting when I got into making sound recordings outdoors, because I'd been living in the city for quite a long time. Various cities, which was quite unnatural for me actually. I'd grown up in the countryside. So for me, the act of intentionally going to somewhere and being really quiet and setting up some microphones and putting some headphones on was quite meditative. That act of sort of intentionally sitting down and listening and suddenly realizing that although I'd set out to get some sounds to use in some music, I was actually finding a form of meditation. And maybe one of the few moments that I didn't talk, or didn't have to talk, or didn't have to look at a phone. In fact, it's easier not to have one at that point because it could be distracting or make a noise or even a buzz. And these days that's quite rare. So I think the act of doing nothing is something that I'd encourage anybody to do. And it certainly makes you see the world in a new way when you focus in. Some people might call that deep listening, which is a cool thing. I recently spent some time speaking to some people who are much cleverer than me about meditation and things like that, and it really felt like there is something in just taking time out and resetting yourself and thinking about nothing and then repositioning yourself to look again at everything around you. I don't actually find it that exciting to just go and look at trees, which is something that in Japan lots of people do. But for me, like, I still don't quite get that idea. I prefer something that maybe more people would think is strange. Just going and listening to it. Because we use our eyes all the time without thinking, listening seems like more of an activity. But who says you need activities anyway? I mean, sometimes the biggest wonder is in just intentionally doing as little as possible. I think if more people did that, then maybe the world would be in a better place. So, there you go. To explore these ideas, I'd really just encourage people to go outside if you can. Find a quiet place, or a busy place even, if that's what you've got nearby. A place where you can just relax, close your eyes, focus on the various things you hear. Actually engage with them. And then start to think about the symphony of all those things around you. Because when I do that, I start to think the music kind of writes itself, because suddenly you've got this entire global orchestra of sounds around you. And you just have to try and remember that moment when you get back and try and keep that with you. The act of listening to those things with a kind of focus can be quite good for your soul, I think, and connect you to something deeper, because a lot of the sounds you hear are things that are much bigger and much more ongoing than the day-to-day of your life. It's not just me wandering around. There's all these different things around us that are sort of waiting to happen, or that are happening. And each one of them has a universe in itself. There's, I don't know, this apple in the tree that's about to drop. And often it's by listening to those things that you can approach them in a different way, because seeing them, we've become kind of numb to it, I think. So it just awakens that sense of connection. reconnecting with some of the natural cycles and natural things going on in the world is quite healing and quite wonderful. And the one thing that's always been constant for us is sunrises, birds come out in the morning and at night, the moon comes out. These are all things we kind of see all the time, and sometimes we don't really think that much about them anymore. There's a whole lot of research being done in all these areas at the moment, and it does seem that the sound of birdsong connects us with circadian rhythms. It connects us with some deeper collective memory, maybe of when we were living outside more, and maybe it told us that things were safe and that we can go outside and enjoy ourselves. One thing that keeps me going in terms of working in this area and exploring it is that there's just so much more to always discover and to find out. When you look at how diverse this world is and how many different types of landscapes and ways of life there are and how many places to explore, it just feels like listening to the sound of them all goes hand in hand with visiting them and experiencing them. So yeah, I'm very interested in the idea of how these various things I'm doing and experiences I'm having can sort of connect with a deeper place that we can all explore, and then to make music and sound that help others to get to those places. And that might be through, for example, making some kind of soundscape that enhances an experience of a, department store, which is something that I've done, for example, but also deeper than that, I think. In April this year, I actually became a dad and have a little baby. The way that she looks at the world is quite interesting, because sometimes if she hasn't seen something before, she'll focus on it and look at it more. But sometimes I'll try and force something like, look, there's a sheep, there's a horse, and she doesn't really care. She finds most wonder in the leaves of trees. Before she was born, I had made all these different soundscapes and mixes based on things like waves or forests. But actually, there's an app that has waves in Hawaii, and unfortunately, that seems to be the thing that sends her to sleep at the moment. We do put on the various mixes I've made and soundscapes, and I think, it's quite nice to have that as a way of connecting together. And maybe someday we can go to all those places and record them together. She might, of course, rebel against all that and say what a load of nonsense. But let's see.